Ladies and gentlemen, Violent Games here, discussing Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. This is going to be a Let's Talk. This is a part of a series where I just like to ramble about stuff. And the reason I had to do a Let's Talk for this game was because there's so many topics that I kind of want to cover that I can't really slap one topic on top of that someone already hasn't. So I'm just going to do this for the people who are curious about what I think. So first off, how did I enjoy Sekiro's Shadow? I keep saying Sekiro's for some reason, like it's a fucking breakfast cereal. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. How did I like this game? Sorry, I just beat it. I'm like a sweaty mess. My hands are shaking. The game's hard. But it is by far one of the most rewarding action games I've ever played in my life. It has probably one of the most entertaining gameplay loops ever because the combat mechanics are just so fucking varied. The enemy types are so varied. The difficulty is just right where it needs to be. Like, I really do feel like this game was made to kill Dark Souls players. Like, it wanted to take your expectations and just stomp them on the ground for people who wanted to compare the two games. In fact, I would say there's such a departure from Sekiro, it's kind of causing this division in the community, which is something else I want to talk about, where people who play Dark Souls might not necessarily like Sekiro, but I feel like this game was made to kill Dark Souls players. If you try to do iframe dodges repeatedly like you do in a FromSoft game or a Dark Souls game or a Bloodborne game, you will die. You have to use every type of mechanic in the combat tools arsenal to succeed in this game. You have to use light attacks, you have to use charge attacks, you have to use the runaway mechanics sometimes. Sometimes it's not always worth it to go into there and fight. Sometimes you will have to bait out enemies' attacks like you do in Dark Souls. Sometimes you're going to have to parry a shit ton. In fact, most of the time, you're going to have to parry a shit ton. So parrying is definitely another thing that kind of divides the community. I just want to touch up on this really quick. I think the parrying is actually a lot easier than people think it is, but I think this is because the Dark Souls windows were a lot tighter. But I found that even if I wasn't nailing the parry times, I could just learn them intuitively by blocking a little earlier and then pushing it closer and closer. But yeah, I don't think the parrying system is too absurd. A lot of people are saying that that is the thing that keeps them away from the game. I understand if you hate the parrying and that makes you not like the game. Just understand, in my opinion, you can get over it. As long as you're not 80 years old and you are able to learn new gameplay mechanics, I think this is doable. My hands never really felt sore from pressing the parry button either. I've heard of this too, but I don't know. Maybe people are old as fuck with arthritis in the gaming community. I don't know what's going on. But in my opinion, the combat of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is unparalleled to anything I've played before, and it's going to be hard going back to previous Soulsborne games because of this game. Because it's so high octane and it's so rewarding, and every sound that is made in combat, the swords clashing together, the sound of your sword making a cut, everything in this game just has so much oomph to it, and it just feels so good. So that's my honest opinion about Sekiro in terms of its combat, its gameplay. I think it's the best game FromSoft has made if you were just to talk about the combat. Now, some negatives when comparing it to Dark Souls and Bloodborne in particular. I find the world design of both Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne to be superior to this game. Now, Dark Souls 3 even has some pretty cool looking set pieces, but I wasn't super fond of Dark Souls 3 for whatever reason. I think it's a personal taste thing. But as far as the world design and stuff goes, it really does kind of go overlooked if you were to compare it to Bloodborne. And the reason for this is because your character moves so goddamn fast, you're hardly able to take in what's going on around you. So sometimes that kind of gets in the way of those set pieces. However, upon exploring some of these set pieces again and really paying attention to my environments, they're really well done and they're varied. There's multiple different levels with multiple different themes, and just overall level design just being intricate is definitely a theme in this game. So overall, I think the level design is really, really great. Another thing that kind of sets it apart from Dark Souls is the way they deliver their lore. Yes, there is still item description reading that needs to be done. That is still a theme. But I would say Sekiro, when it comes to its main plot and themes, is a lot more on the nose than FromSoft's previous games, where it's a lot more vague and has a lot more symbolism. Sekiro is much more on the nose and much much more easy to interpret. Now, with that being said, the story is delivered really well. And a lot of people are like, oh, you should play in the Japanese, voice acting to get the authentic experience. I say fuck those people. And here's why. The English voice acting is exceptional in this game. The lip syncing is questionable at best. I'll give you that. But the voice acting is spectacular. Why you wouldn't want to understand the story of this game through the voices of like a bunch of really good voice actors? I don't know what's wrong with you. But yes, the English dub is just fine. So I really like the story. I think it definitely works, but it's definitely not the salient point of this game. Like, for example, I think Bloodborne impacted me a lot more as a story than Sekiro did. In fact, Sekiro's story is kind of forgettable, but what's not forgettable about the game is its combat mechanics. Now, another thing that people don't like about Sekiro when it comes to comparing them between the two games is player choice. There is a lot less player choice within Sekiro. The really only player choices you have in terms of the gameplay are what weapon arts you use at any given time and what prosthetic tools you use at any given time. But as far as the base mechanics go, you have to be good with everything. You have to be good at dodging. You can't just build yourself like a tank like you can in Dark Souls. You have to take this game seriously. The difficulty is never unbalanced as a result, which is something I actually like about this game. Because in Dark Souls, what happened to me when I was playing Dark Souls 1, I actually played it recently on the Nintendo Switch. I played that version of the game because I thought it'd be hilarious to play it on handheld. One problem I ran into is I went to an area I wasn't supposed to, but I persevered, right? I went to an area that was a bit later game than what my character was called for, but I managed to learn the mechanics, probably because I played Bloodborne, and I made it through successfully. But upon revisiting some of the areas that I missed, like I authentically missed these areas. I didn't intentionally skip them. I just dominated the bosses and it felt like shit. This game does not have that issue. Balance is never an issue. Difficulty is never an issue. This game is always on hard mode and I love it. I love it so much. I think that's kind of a problem with the upbringing of casual gaming as we evolve as a culture. I think casual gaming has brought in a lot of casual games because everyone wants their games to be as accessible to everyone as much as possible, so multiple games will have difficulty settings if they feel otherwise. But Sekiro is not for the casual gamer. It's for the hardcore gamer, the gamer that wants to use every button on their controller. That's who this game is for. And I do agree that the game is going to be divisive on those terms, but do I think the game is too hard and warrants an easy mode? No. No. And a lot of people are like, oh, the game wouldn't be hurt by a difficulty mode. Oh, the game, yes, it would. The whole point is to overcome challenges that are meaningful. If you take the damage away from Sekiro, for example, or the damage in Sekiro, I don't know why I'm saying from, it would completely defeat the point of this game. Like, I don't understand why people don't get that. Like, this game's supposed to be hard. Either deal with it or don't deal with it. And I'm not going to say get good, because not everyone cares that much. And I feel like that's kind of a pretentious thing to say. It's kind of like saying, oh, I'm better than you, blah, blah, blah. I don't think any gamer is better than any other gamer because they played Sekiro or got along with it or not. I just think people should understand what they're getting into when they buy this game. It's not hard. And that's the thing. That's why everyone's complaining, oh, the game's too hard. It's not enough like Dark Souls. You should have done your research then. You should have done your research. And if you watch any impression video before the game came out, people were saying, this game is not like Dark Souls. Do not play it like Dark Souls. And people couldn't get that through their fucking heads. Anyhow, before I get triggered because I love this game and I want to defend it, I do want to kind of play devil's advocate and say that sometimes in this game you will hit a wall and the answer might not be directly in your face, and it can become annoying. But in my opinion, I have no shame, and if I hit a wall, to look up a guide and have someone tell me what the winning strategy is. Because implementing that strategy is still satisfying in the game, and it saves me frustration and time. And I don't know why other people don't do this when they hit a wall in this game, and they're just pissed beyond belief. That happened to me literally once in the game, and that was Madame Butterfly, because I couldn't get through my head how to fight her because I had done a few things incorrectly because I didn't really understand the game's combat engine. But when I looked up a guide, someone explained to me simply that, oh, you need to be parrying a lot, you need to be aggressive, even though she's scary, you need to be aggressive, and that really helped me throughout the rest of the game, not just that fight in particular. So I don't get what people's problem is with this game in terms of difficulty. I guess it's just hard. It's a learning curve that people are having trouble getting over, and I guess to them it feels impossible. But I want to tell you guys right now, it is not. I was not good at parrying in Dark Souls. I was shit at it, in fact, and I made most of my builds against that parrying mechanic because I found myself so bad at it. I can parry in Sekiro so easily. And I feel like the parry windows are a bit more generous, but your enemies attack a lot faster, and they'll often deviate their swings, not making it as easy to predict when their sword will land. You kind of have to learn intuitively how it works. Now, into directly comparing these two games, or not even these two games, comparing Sekiro to every Dark Souls game and Bloodborne game to this one, what do I think the other games do better? Because I've been talking about how I think Sekiro's combat engine far exceeds, you know, any FromSoft game up to this point because of its complexity, and the learning curve is just, it's so good. I love this game, guys. It is so good. What does Dark Souls and Bloodborne do better, in my opinion? I think Dark Souls 1 especially is probably one of the best allegories in any video game. I feel like the storytelling of Dark Souls 1, it has more impact on me as a person than the story in Sekiro. I feel like the story in both Bloodborne and Dark Souls 1 exceeds Sekiro's. Now, Dark Souls 3 just kind of retreads the same themes, so I'm not going to include it here, but, you know, how do you feel about that? That's up to you. But in my honest opinion, I feel like the world building of Dark Souls, as well as the narrative of Dark Souls, is a bit better. You kind of have to look into it a bit more introspectively. There's a lot more symbolism than there is in Sekiro. Like I said, Sekiro is very on the nose with its narrative. But I do think the Dark Souls nail storytelling and vagueness and having to really look into things artistically a bit better than Sekiro. Another thing Dark Souls gives you is it gives you more player choice. And because of this player choice, you can pick different builds. You could be a ranged caster. You can be a glass cannon mage, for example. You can be a hybrid. You can have some paladin spells, but then spec into some weird spear or something. There are multiple weapons with different move sets that you would have to learn. Whereas in Sekiro, your primary weapon is the katana and will remain your fucking weeb stick throughout the entire game. And you best get good with the weeb stick. So player choice is definitely bigger in those games, and to be honest, there is more replay value in both Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne than there is in Sekiro's entire body. That is the one thing that I honestly don't know what the point of replaying Sekiro is. Once you beat that challenge, in my opinion, you know all these bosses. Replaying it a second time doesn't make it more difficult. If anything, it makes it absurdly easy because you've mastered the combat engine, but maybe that's like the power fantasy run. That's really the only appeal for replaying Sekiro, whereas Bloodborne, I played Bloodborne more than 10 times. I'm not shitting you. Well, actually, that's probably an exaggeration, but let's say up to 10 times because it was a good amount. It was a good amount I replayed Bloodborne. I even play it on and off to this day because I just love the art design and the world, and I feel like I always pick up on something within the environment that makes me understand the lore even more, or maybe I read an item description wrong. I feel like Bloodborne is just so much more varied in that aspect, and plus all of the trick weapons, having to replay for that. That was a really nice replay incentive for those games. That does not exist here in Sekiro because the lack of player choice there. But however, Sekiro makes full use of its mechanics, and it keeps you in the action. There are certain things about Sekiro's design that are more action-oriented than in previous FromSoft games. For example, you have unlimited homeward bones. You can teleport anywhere from the get-go. traversing the world is never a problem because you're so fast. The point is getting into the action, not being away from it, not doing these long runs to collect your souls. It's about playing the game right, and I love this. Looting has even been, more simplified because they don't want you just running over a bunch of different people's corpses after a battle and looting all their shit. They want you to take your shit and move on. Like, you just turn into a vacuum and you take all the loot and you're gone. And I love it. It's just so fast paced. You feel like you get to explore the environment on your own terms, and it's just so convenient. However, with that fast movement speed, like I said, the world design does go down, the hill a little bit. So anyways, guys, I think I've rambled enough. I'm starting to talk in circles. That's what I do after I've talked for too long. It happens to all of us. But this is Violent Games giving you my impressions on Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. My conclusion is I think Sekiro mechanically is the best FromSoft game ever. But as a narrative, it is a major departure from the Dark Souls and Bloodborne series in a way that I personally don't like, but in my opinion is serviceable. Like, the story is good in Sekiro. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm comparing it to a juggernaut like Dark Souls is the thing. Keep that in mind. I'm comparing it to one of the best narratives ever in a video game. Yeah, it's probably going to fall short in that department, but what it does is still very serviceable, and there's a lot of intricacies in that lore that are also vague that could incentivize replay throughs. But like I said, for me, the mechanics are the fun of this game for me was learning all of these things. I love learning. I feel like it's very rewarding for your brain. It's the satisfaction you get upon completing a puzzle game almost. But it also has the satisfaction of an action game. Look, I love Sekiro. I'm really going to have a hard time picking Game of the Year between this and Resident Evil. And that's the note I'm going to leave you on because oh my gosh. Guys, 2019 is starting off pretty fucking strong. I'm actually worried for the rest of the year being able to keep up with this greatness. This fucking greatness, man. Anyways, I keep saying I'm going to sign off. Okay, the video's over. Done.